The desert was quiet under the silver light of the moon. A soft wind carried grains of sand across endless dunes, and the night sky spread wide above with stars bright as jewels. Miran walked at the front of a small group, his boots sinking into the sand with every step. Behind him followed 3 others, their lanterns glowing faintly like fireflies in the darkness. They had been searching for weeks, guided by old maps and strange stories, and tonight their journey brought them to something unexpected. The wind shifted, and a ridge of sand slid away, revealing the edge of carved stone. Miran stopped and lifted his hand for silence. The others gathered near, their lanterns raised. Leora, the group's historian, brushed the sand with her hand and gasped softly. A wide slab of stone stretched before them, covered in lines that shone faintly as if touched by starlight. The symbols were not like ordinary writing. They curved like flowing rivers and branched like constellations. "This is not just an old wall," Leora whispered. "It feels alive." The others looked closer. The symbols glimmered more brightly under the lanterns as if responding to human presence. Miran traced the lines with his eyes and noticed that they resembled the night sky above. But the shapes were not the same as the constellations he knew. Some stars were missing while others appeared where no star should be. It was like a different map of the heavens, one that belonged to another time or another world. He placed his palm gently on the stone. A faint warmth pulsed beneath his hand. The sand at the base shifted, revealing the outline of a doorway. The explorers stepped back as the hidden entrance slowly revealed itself, framed by pillars carved with the same glowing patterns. Beyond the doorway stretched a passage swallowed in shadow, yet a soft golden glow pulsed from deep within. Miran turned to the others. "We came for answers. If we walk away now, the desert will cover this again, maybe for another 1,000 years. "I say we go in," the group agreed with nervous nods. They lit their lanterns brighter and stepped into the passage. The air inside was cooler than the desert night, carrying the scent of stone and something faintly metallic. The walls were smooth and polished, reflecting their lights in strange shapes. Shadows danced across the surfaces, stretching longer than they should, bending in directions that made no sense. As they walked deeper, the golden glow ahead grew stronger. It did not come from torches or lamps, but from streams of light that flowed like water across the walls. The streams twisted and branched, filling the passage with a soft radiance. The explorers moved carefully, their footsteps echoing softly as though the hall itself listened. The passage opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling arched high above, vanishing into shadow. Columns rose like trees, each one carved with the glowing symbols. Golden beams of light moved slowly across the walls as if alive, shifting into shapes that almost looked like constellations. The explorers stood silently, struck by the sight. The hall felt less like a tomb and more like a place built for the sky itself. Leora stepped closer to one of the columns and placed her fingers gently against the surface. The golden lines brightened under her touch, forming a circle of light that spread outward. She looked back at the group, her eyes wide. "These are not decorations," she said softly. "They are stories. Look carefully." Miran studied the moving lines. The golden light bent into patterns that resembled people, ships, and stars. The walls were telling tales, though the language was unlike anything they knew. Still, the images carried meaning. He saw figures with crowns of light standing beside tall structures, and he saw pathways stretching into the heavens. The explorers walked further into the chamber, their lanterns almost unnecessary now. The hall was filled with shifting shadows that seemed to lean and move as if watching them. Golden beams slid across the floor like rivers of sunlight, guiding their steps toward the far end of the chamber. There, half hidden in darkness, stood a massive doorway carved with even more symbols. The group hesitated at the sight of it. The doorway seemed alive, as though it breathed with a rhythm of its own. Shadows pooled around its edges, yet the golden light outlined its frame, making it shine like the horizon at sunrise. Miran felt his heart race. Whatever lay beyond, it was not meant for casual eyes. He looked at his companions. "We did not find ruins," he said quietly. "We found something greater. This place was waiting for us." The others nodded, though unease flickered in their expressions. The silence of the chamber pressed against them, broken only by the soft hum of light moving across stone. It was not a threatening silence, but it carried weight, like the pause before a secret was spoken. They decided to rest a moment, standing in the golden glow. The desert night outside seemed far away, forgotten. Within these walls, time felt slower, as if they had stepped into another world. Shadows shifted along the floor, curling like smoke, and the explorers could not tell whether the movement came from their lanterns or from something else entirely. Leora raised her gaze to the ceiling. For a moment she thought she saw stars glowing high above, as though the roof had vanished to reveal the sky itself. She blinked and the vision faded back to shadow, yet the impression remained strong. This hall was not simply carved stone. It was alive with mystery. Moran looked once more at the massive doorway at the end of the chamber. A sense of purpose filled him. Whatever secrets were hidden here, they had to be uncovered. He knew their journey had only just begun. The explorers did not sleep that night. The golden glow of the chamber kept their eyes open and their minds awake. Every time Moran looked at the walls, the moving streams of light formed new shapes as if the hall wanted to share endless stories. Leora kept her journal open, sketching quickly so the visions would not be lost. Her hand trembled with excitement as she copied the glowing symbols and strange star patterns. The group gathered near the great doorway at the far end of the chamber. The stone surface looked smooth, but the golden lines that framed it shifted slowly as though waiting for a signal. Moran placed his hand against the door. It was cold, yet the glow beneath his fingers brightened for a moment before fading again. It was clear that the door would not open by strength alone. They stepped back, uncertain of what to do next. Then the hall itself seemed to change. A low hum spread through the air, rising from the floor like the soft echo of distant bells. The explorers exchanged glances. The sound was gentle, not frightening, yet it carried a power that touched their hearts. The golden streams on the walls began to flow faster, twisting into new patterns. Leora moved closer and studied the images. "Look carefully," she whispered. "These are not random lights. They are telling us something." The others followed her gaze. The golden lines now formed shapes of stars connected in patterns. They resembled constellations, but not the ones the explorers knew from their nights in the desert. Instead, the lights created maps of skies that seemed strange and unfamiliar. Moran tilted his head back. "It looks like a sky from another world." The group stood in silence, watching as the constellations shifted into scenes. The glowing lines formed tall figures who raised their arms to the heavens. Ships shaped like crescents floated above them, and streams of light connected the ships to the ground. The figures appeared to be teaching, pointing to the stars as if sharing knowledge with those below. Leora's voice shook with wonder. These pharaohs were not only rulers, they were keepers of star stories. They wanted those who came after them to understand that Earth was not alone. The explorers listened as the hum in the air deepened, blending with the golden light until the whole chamber seemed alive. Shadows stretched across the floor and rose along the columns. The shadows were strange, bending in directions that did not match the lanterns. It was as though unseen figures walked among them, silent and watchful. Despite the strangeness, there was no sense of danger. The shadows felt more like guardians than threats. The group stood together, breathing slowly, their lanterns now dim compared to the living light of the hall. Suddenly, the golden glow on one of the columns pulsed brightly. The light spread across its surface until an image appeared. It showed a pharaoh seated on a high throne. In his hands he held a rod of gold that shone like the sun. Beside him stood a tall being of light, taller than any human, its form shifting like flowing water. The two figures faced one another as equals. The explorers stepped closer. They could not hear words, but the image itself carried meaning. The pharaoh was not worshipping the being of light, nor was the being demanding obedience. Instead, they were sharing, as if two teachers meeting to exchange wisdom. Leora whispered, "This is a story of friendship." The pharaohs were not alone in their knowledge. They were visited and they learned. The golden image faded back into flowing streams. For a moment, the chamber was silent again, except for the soft hum in the air. The group felt the weight of what they had seen. If the images were true, then the hall was not just a tomb or a temple. It was a record left behind to remind humanity of a greater connection to the stars. Moran looked back at the sealed doorway. He felt certain now that it hid more than stone chambers. It was a path deeper into a truth that had been hidden for ages. As the explorers rested against the columns, the golden glow shifted again. This time, the streams of light flowed across the floor, gathering into a single path that led straight to the doorway. The light curved like a river, shining brightly against the shadowed ground. The group rose slowly to their feet. No words were needed. The hall itself had given them a direction. They followed the golden path until they stood before the great doorway once more. The glow from the floor spread upward, wrapping around the frame until the symbols on the stone began to shine. The hum grew louder, yet still gentle, like a chorus rising in harmony. The doorway trembled slightly. The explorers held their breath as the golden lines pulsed in rhythm with the sound. At last, the stone surface split into two halves that slid silently apart, revealing a passage beyond. The new corridor stretched into darkness, though faint beams of gold flickered along the walls guiding the way. The explorers stepped forward, their lanterns in hand, though the hall itself seemed to light their path. As they walked deeper, the golden beams formed shapes again. This time the walls showed scenes of rivers, cities, and grand monuments. The images shifted like memories, showing the rise of civilizations and the passing of ages. The explorers felt as though they were walking through history itself, surrounded by visions that belonged both to Earth and to the stars. Miran's voice was low but steady. "The hall is waking. It wants us to see. It wants us to learn." The group moved together, their footsteps soft, their hearts filled with wonder. Ahead, the golden beams bent toward a chamber waiting in the distance. Whatever waited there, it was clear that the journey into the Hall of Shadows had only just begun. The golden path carried the explorers deeper into the hall, and the air grew cooler with each step. Their lanterns flickered, though they hardly needed them now, for the walls themselves gave off a gentle glow. Shadows followed along the floor, sliding beside the group as if alive, bending in ways that no ordinary shadow should. Miran glanced at them more than once, yet they never touched the explorers. They stayed near, watching in silence. At last, the passage opened into another vast chamber. This one was round, with high walls that curved upward until they disappeared into darkness. At the center stood tall statues carved from black stone, their forms half hidden in shadow. Each statue was shaped like a pharaoh, yet their crowns were unlike the ones known from history. The crowns stretched upward into points that resembled stars, and in their hands they held strange objects that glimmered faintly. The explorers gathered in awe. Leora stepped closer, her eyes wide. "These statues are not just for honor. Look at how they stand. They are aligned with the stars on the walls." Miran lifted his gaze. Sure enough, the golden streams of light on the chamber walls bent into constellations, and each statue pointed directly to one. The room was not random. It was a map. The group spread out to study the carvings. One statue held a golden disc, and the light above it shaped itself into a sun. Another held a rod that glowed faintly, and the light above shaped itself into a long path across the stars. As Miran studied the nearest statue, he noticed something strange. The shadows cast by the figures did not fall where they should. His lantern pointed left, but the shadow of the statue stretched right. He stepped closer, his hand brushing against the base. The stone felt warm, as though something moved within it. Suddenly, a burst of golden dust rose from the statue's hands. The explorers stepped back, their breaths caught. The dust swirled in the air, glowing brighter until it formed moving images. The chamber filled with light as the dust shaped itself into scenes. The explorers stood silently, watching as the story unfolded. The images showed pharaohs walking beside tall beings made of light. The beings had no faces, only shifting brightness, and they moved with calm grace. Together they raised monuments and studied the stars. They pointed upward, drawing paths across the sky, and the pharaohs followed their guidance. Leora's voice was barely a whisper. "This is no simple tale. These shadows are showing us how the pharaohs learned. They were taught by those who came from beyond." The golden dust shifted again, forming a new scene. This time the pharaohs stood before their people, passing on what they had learned. The beings of light were not above them or behind them, but beside them, sharing as equals. The message was clear. Knowledge was meant to flow like a river, given freely to those who were ready. The explorers exchanged looks filled with wonder. It was as though the chamber itself was alive, teaching them through vision and light. The statues were not only carvings, but keepers of memory. When the images faded, the dust fell back into the statues, and the chamber grew calm once more. Yet the explorers felt changed. They had seen something that could not be forgotten. Miran walked to the center of the chamber. His lantern glowed faintly, casting long shadows across the floor. He noticed again how the shadows seemed to bend away from the golden paths on the walls. "These shadows are not empty," he said quietly. "They are part of the message." The others nodded. Indeed, when they looked more closely, the shadows were not simple dark shapes. They curved into forms that almost looked like figures. Some stood tall, others knelt, and still others pointed toward the statues. It was as though the past itself had left traces in the darkness. The explorers circled the chamber, studying each statue in turn. Whenever they touched the carvings, golden dust rose again, revealing more scenes. Each vision added pieces to the story. Ships crossing the skies like stars in motion, beings of light offering gifts that shone like the sun. Pharaohs writing on golden tablets, their faces calm and thoughtful. Leora filled her journal with sketches and notes, her hand moving quickly. She could not capture the brilliance of the light, yet she tried to record every detail before it faded. Her heart beat fast with excitement. She had studied old stories for years, but nothing compared to standing here, watching history alive in golden dust. When at last the chamber grew quiet again, the explorers gathered together. The golden beams of light on the wall slowly shifted, drawing their attention to another passage opposite the one they had entered. The beams curved like a river leading deeper into shadow. Miran looked at his companions. His face showed both wonder and caution. Every chamber teaches us more. The hall does not want us to stop. It is guiding us. The group stood for a moment, each one feeling the weight of the journey. They had come searching for hidden treasure buried beneath the sands. Now they understood that the treasure was not gold or jewels, but knowledge preserved in light and shadow. With steady steps, they turned toward the new passage. The golden beams shone gently, lighting their way. Behind them, the chamber of statues faded into silence once more, the shadows resting at the base of the figures like quiet guardians. The explorers walked forward, ready for what awaited them in the next chamber, their hearts filled with the certainty that the Hall of Shadows held secrets far greater than they had ever imagined. The new passage was narrower than the others. Its walls curved gently inward, and golden beams flowed along the stone like streams of light. The explorers moved carefully, their lanterns casting soft glows that mingled with the shifting patterns. The air felt still, as though the hall itself was holding its breath. Moran walked at the front. His eyes followed the golden beams as they stretched ahead. The path seemed alive, bending and curving as though guiding them onward. Behind him, Leora held her journal close, her pen ready to record. The other two explorers kept watch on the walls, whispering to one another whenever they saw new shapes forming in the glow. After some distance, the passage widened into a corridor lined with tall panels of stone. Each panel shone faintly, and the shadows on them twisted into scenes. At first, the explorers thought they were simple carvings, but then the shadows began to move. The panels came alive like windows into another time. The explorers watched in silence. The first panel showed a wide desert, its sand stretching to the horizon. Figures walked across the dunes, their robes flowing, their faces calm. They carried tools and baskets, and behind them rose tall structures that shimmered in the sunlight. The second panel changed to show a river lined with green fields. Boats glided along the water while people sang and worked together. The scene was peaceful, filled with rhythm and harmony. Leora whispered, "It is as if the shadows are showing us the rise of old kingdoms. They are telling us how life once was." Miran touched the edge of one panel. It felt smooth, yet warm, as though it remembered what it displayed. The moment his hand brushed the stone, the scene shifted again. This time it showed a city with high towers. Golden light poured down from the sky, and figures raised their arms as if welcoming it. The explorers stood in awe. Each panel they passed showed another scene, a flowing story of deserts, rivers, and cities that rose and fell. The shadows told not of battles or sorrow, but of growth, learning, and discovery. It was history written in light. As they walked, the corridor itself began to change. The walls shimmered, and for a moment the explorers felt as though they were no longer underground. The air smelled of water and grass. The ground beneath their feet rippled like sand warmed by the sun. Then the vision shifted, and they seemed to stand in a bustling marketplace filled with laughter. The lanterns in their hands dimmed, for the golden light around them was enough. Leora held her breath. "These are not only stories on the walls. The hall is wrapping us in memory. It wants us to live the past, not just see it." The explorers moved forward, surrounded by illusions of great cities. At one point, they passed under an arch that seemed to open into a shining temple. For a heartbeat, it looked real, solid and bright. But when they reached out their hands, their fingers touched only air and shadow. The hall was playing with light and memory, blending them together until the difference was hard to see. The golden path continued to bend, leading them deeper. At last the corridor opened into a chamber unlike any they had seen before. This one glowed brighter than the sun at dawn. Its floor shone as though made of polished gold, and its ceiling sparkled with points of light like a night sky turned upside down. The explorers stopped at the threshold, overwhelmed by the beauty. At the center of the chamber rose a tall pillar, its surface covered in glowing symbols. Around the base, streams of golden light circled like rivers meeting at one place. The explorers felt as though they had reached the heart of the hall. Moran stepped forward slowly, his footsteps echoing across the shining floor. As he approached the pillar, the golden streams brightened and the symbols began to shift. The glow filled the chamber until it seemed like the stars themselves had descended to surround them. Leora joined him, her eyes wide with wonder. This place is not just memory. It is a living path. Each step brings us closer to something greater. The explorers circled the pillar, watching as the symbols moved. They noticed that some of the shapes matched the constellations they had seen earlier. Others were unfamiliar, as though they belonged to skies that no human had ever walked beneath. Suddenly, the golden streams gathered together and rose into the air. They formed a bridge of light that stretched from the pillar to another doorway on the far side of the chamber. The path hovered gently, inviting yet mysterious. The group looked at one another. They knew the hall had been guiding them with purpose. The illusions of the corridor, the visions of past kingdoms, and now this bridge of light were not accidents. They were tests or perhaps steps in a journey that demanded trust. Moran raised his lantern, though the chamber needed no extra light. We have followed this far. We cannot turn back now. The hall is leading us, and we must see where it ends. With steady steps, he placed his foot on the golden bridge. It held firm beneath him, glowing brighter at his touch. Leora followed, her journal clutched tightly to her chest. The others stepped after them, their eyes fixed on the doorway ahead. As they crossed the bridge, the chamber behind them faded into shadow. The ceiling stars dimmed and the golden pillar grew still. It was as if the hall had given them its gift and now waited in silence. The explorers reached the far side and stepped through the glowing doorway. Ahead lay another passage, darker than any they had yet seen. Only faint sparks of gold flickered within it like embers waiting to be stirred. They took a breath and entered, their hearts filled with both awe and curiosity. The hall had shown them memory, illusion, and light. Now it promised something deeper, something hidden beyond the golden path. The new passage was darker than any the explorers had walked before. Their lanterns flickered weakly, and the faint golden sparks along the walls seemed too small to guide them. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft echo of their footsteps. It felt as if the hall was waiting, holding back its breath until the right moment came. Moran led carefully, his eyes fixed on the shifting lights ahead. Leora followed close, clutching her journal but writing nothing now. The silence of the passage pressed too strongly for her pen to move. The other two explorers kept their hands close to the walls as if drawing comfort from the faint warmth of the stone. After what felt like a long walk, the passage opened suddenly into a wide chamber. This chamber was unlike the others. It was neither filled with glowing symbols nor visions of cities. Instead, it was almost empty, its walls plain and smooth, its ceiling lost in shadow. At the very center stood a tall figure made not of stone but of shifting light. The explorers stopped at the threshold, their lanterns trembling in their hands. The figure shimmered between brightness and shadow, its form never still. At times it looked tall and human, at other times it stretched like a column of light. A soft hum filled the chamber, rising and falling like the sound of distant voices. Moran stepped forward slowly, his heart steady but cautious. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice carrying across the chamber. The figure moved, though not with steps. It glided closer, its form rippling like water touched by wind. When it spoke, its voice was not a single sound, but many, layered together in harmony. "I am the keeper of memory. I was placed here when the hall was built, to guard its secrets and guide those who are worthy." The explorers listened, their faces lit by the glow of the figure. Leora whispered softly, "It speaks. The hall has a guardian." The keeper raised an arm of light, and the walls of the chamber brightened. Streams of golden glow spread across the stone, forming patterns that twisted like rivers. This hall was not made only as a tomb. It was created as a bridge, It carries the knowledge of those who once walked among the stars and shared their wisdom with your people. Many ages have passed, and the sands have hidden this place. But now you stand here ready to see what was left behind. Miran felt a deep respect stir within him. He bowed his head slightly. We did not come searching for treasure of gold or jewels. We came with questions, and we are ready to listen. The keeper's form shifted, growing brighter for a moment before settling again. That is why the hall has opened its doors to you. Many would seek wealth, but the true gift here is not wealth of earth. It is wealth of thought. Knowledge is more precious than gold, for it shapes the hands and hearts of those who carry it. The explorers stepped slowly into the chamber, circling the figure with wide eyes. The hum in the air felt gentle now, almost like a song. Shadows stretched across the floor, bending toward the keeper as if drawn to its presence. Leora lifted her gaze. If you are the keeper, what must we do to receive what is hidden? The keeper extended its hand of light toward the far wall. A doorway appeared there, glowing faintly as though waiting to be opened. Beyond lies the gift. You will see what has been guarded for ages. But remember this. What you carry from here will shape not only you, but those who come after you. Be wise, for knowledge is light that can brighten or blind. The explorers shared a silent glance. They felt the weight of the words. This was not a simple discovery. It was a responsibility. Miran stepped closer to the keeper. We understand. We will honor what is given. The figure shimmered softly, its light pulsing once like a heartbeat. Then go, and let your steps be guided by truth. The explorers turned toward the glowing doorway. The golden beams across the floor bent to form a path leading straight to it. Their footsteps echoed gently as they followed the light. When they reached the doorway, Miran placed his hand on its surface. It opened without sound, sliding apart to reveal a chamber beyond. From inside poured a radiance brighter than anything they had seen so far. The explorers shielded their eyes, stepping carefully into the glow. Behind them, the keeper remained still, its form shining softly. Its voice carried across the chamber one last time. The hall remembers. Walk with care, seekers of the golden path. The explorers passed through the doorway, their hearts filled with awe. The glow around them grew stronger, wrapping them in warmth and brilliance. They had walked through shadows, through visions of the past, through tests of patience and trust. Now they were stepping into the place where the true treasure of the hall was kept. The passage closed behind them, leaving the keeper alone in its silent chamber. The hum faded into calm stillness. The hall had done its part. The explorers would now see the truth hidden in the heart of shadows. The chamber beyond the glowing doorway was filled with light so bright it was almost hard to look at. Golden beams stretched across the floor and walls, forming patterns that shifted and moved like living rivers. The explorers blinked rapidly, letting their eyes adjust. Even without their lanterns, they could see everything clearly. Miran took a cautious step forward. The floor felt warm under his feet, smooth like polished stone. The golden light was not just for decoration. It pulsed in rhythm with their steps, moving as though alive. He turned to his companions. This is it. The heart of the hall. Leora moved closer to one of the walls. She gasped softly. Shelves lined the chamber from floor to ceiling, and on each shelf were golden tablets. They were thin, shining as though made from sunlight itself. The symbols on the tablets shifted and changed, forming new shapes as she watched. Some of the writing resembled the constellations they had seen earlier. Others were completely unfamiliar. These are not jewels or coins, she whispered. This is knowledge. True treasure. The other explorers leaned closer. They could see that the tablets were arranged carefully, almost like a map. Some glowed brighter than others, as if calling to the seekers. Miran lifted one from a shelf and felt warmth run through his fingers. The symbols on the tablet rearranged themselves into moving images, showing stars, planets, and strange machines that seemed to float through space. One of the images showed figures much like the beings of light they had seen in the statues. They moved across the stars, teaching and sharing with others. Another image showed humans learning from these visitors, studying the skies and recording knowledge in golden tablets that now surrounded them. Miran's heart raced. The hall protected this for thousands of years. The gold is here, yes, but it is knowledge, wisdom, and guidance. This is what was hidden in the darkness. Leora's hand hovered over a tablet. The symbols shifted and formed a map of the stars above the hall. Lines of light connected one star to another, creating pathways across the sky. It is not just history, she said. It is a guide. Instructions, lessons, a way for humans to reach beyond Earth. The explorers moved carefully through the chamber, touching the tablets lightly. Every touch released more golden dust that formed moving images. Cities, rivers, deserts, and distant worlds appeared in patterns of light. The dust settled back into the tablets as the images faded, leaving the glow behind. They spent long moments studying, trying to understand the lessons hidden within each symbol. It was clear that the hall had been created to protect this knowledge until humans were ready to receive it. The tablets were not just records of the past, but a gift for the future. Miran paused near the center of the chamber. "This is more valuable than any treasure chest," he said quietly. "It can change the way we see the world, the way we understand the stars, the way we live." The other explorers nodded. They understood the weight of what they had found. It was not something to use for personal gain. It was something to learn from, to share when the time was right. Leora turned toward a tablet that glowed more brightly than the rest. She lifted it gently, and the symbols rearranged themselves into a vision of a golden path stretching across the sky. A voice, soft but clear, seemed to echo in her mind. "Walk with courage. Share the wisdom. Light the way for those who follow." The explorers felt a warmth in their hearts. The hall had not only given them knowledge, but also a purpose. They understood that the real gold hidden in darkness was the light of understanding and hope. Miran placed a hand on another tablet. Streams of golden dust rose, forming images of humans learning to build, explore, and dream. The hall had shown them that knowledge could guide humanity to achieve great things without harming others. Every vision reinforced a single truth. The greatest treasure was not something that could be held in hands, but something that could illuminate minds. As they prepared to leave the chamber, the golden light dimmed slightly, though it still glowed warmly. The tablets remained on their shelves, waiting for others to come and learn. The explorers had received the hall's gift, and they understood that it was their responsibility to protect it until humanity was ready to use it wisely. Miran looked back one last time. "The hall kept its secrets well," he said. "Now it trusts us." Leora nodded, her eyes shining with excitement and respect. "We carry gold hidden in darkness," she said softly. "Not the gold of riches, but the gold of knowledge. The gold that can guide humanity to the stars." Together the explorers turned toward the glowing doorway that led back to the keeper. Their steps were steady, their hearts filled with wonder. The hall had tested them, guided them, and rewarded them. They had seen what no one else had seen for thousands of years. They carried with them the light of the hall, ready to share it when the time was right. The explorers stepped out of the chamber of golden tablets and into the hall where the keeper of memory waited. Its form of shifting light shimmered softly, and the gentle hum of the chamber filled the air. For a moment they stood quietly, reflecting on what they had seen. Every one of them felt a deep sense of awe and gratitude. Miran bowed slightly. "We have seen the heart of the hall," he said. "We have walked the golden path and learned its secrets." The keeper pulsed gently as though nodding in approval. "You have carried yourselves with respect and patience," it said. "The hall has shared its wisdom because you were ready. Remember this gift and guard it well, for it is meant to guide, not to serve only yourselves." Leora stepped forward, holding her journal tightly. "We will honor the hall. Its knowledge will not be hidden again. One day humanity will be ready to understand fully." The keeper's light grew brighter for a moment, then receded. "The time will come. Walk in truth, seekers of the golden path. Share what you have learned when the world is ready. For now, go back to your lands and carry the spark of understanding with you." The explorers began to make their way back through the hall. The golden beams on the walls seemed to bend toward them, guiding their steps. The shadows that had followed them earlier shifted back into stillness like guardians resting after a long watch. The statues, the illusions, and the golden pathways remained behind, waiting silently for the next visitors who might be ready to learn. As they approached the entrance to the desert, the first light of dawn spilled across the sands. The sun rose slowly, turning the dunes into rivers of gold. The explorers paused to look at the horizon. It was a reminder that the hall had not only shown them hidden knowledge, but also the connection between Earth and the stars. Miran inhaled deeply. The hall is more than stone and light. It is a message. Humanity has the chance to grow, to reach for the stars, and to learn from the wisdom left behind. Leora opened her journal and looked at the sketches she had made. The golden tablets, the visions, the glowing constellations. All of it was recorded, at least in part. She knew that these notes would help future generations understand what the hall had shared. "We may not be ready to use all of it now," she said, "but one day, the knowledge will guide others to greatness." The group began their journey across the desert. The sands glowed faintly in the morning light, reflecting the memory of the hall's golden beams. They walked together, feeling the weight of what they carried and the responsibility to protect it. It was not heavy in a physical sense, but it was a treasure far greater than any gem or coin. Miran glanced back at the dunes. The entrance to the hall was hidden once more, slowly covered by shifting sands. The desert would keep its secret safe until another seeker came, someone ready to understand and respect the wisdom of the past. The explorers did not speak much as they walked. Each was lost in thought, imagining the possibilities that awaited humanity if the lessons of the hall were followed. They felt a quiet pride, not for themselves, but for what humans could achieve when they worked with care, curiosity, and understanding. Leora lifted her eyes to the sky. The constellations she had seen inside the hall now seemed familiar in a way they had not before. She could almost see the golden lines connecting stars, tracing pathways that stretched beyond Earth. "The hall reminds us that we are not alone," she whispered. "And that knowledge is the brightest treasure we can hold." Miran smiled faintly. "We have walked through shadows and light. We have seen what is hidden and learned what matters most. Now it is our turn to carry this forward." The explorers continued across the desert, the rising sun casting long golden reflections on the sands. Each step felt like a promise to protect the knowledge they had gained, and to wait for the day when humanity would be ready to fully understand the treasure hidden in darkness. As the hall disappeared behind the dunes, the explorers felt a sense of hope unlike any they had known before. They had discovered more than a place. They had discovered a vision of what humans could become, guided by wisdom, curiosity, and the courage to explore the unknown. Together, they walked toward the horizon, carrying with them the golden light of understanding. The desert stretched wide and bright before them, and in the distance the first signs of civilization awaited. The sun reflected like gold on the sands, a reminder that the brightest treasures are often hidden, waiting for those who seek them with respect and courage. The Hall of Shadows had fulfilled its purpose. Humanity now had a chance to rise, guided by the knowledge that had waited for them in silence, hidden in darkness, and preserved in light.